radio network at paranormalking.com.
Welcome to the Paranormal News Insider for the week of April 30th, 2019. And this is episode number 392. And this is your host, Dr. Brian D. Parsons. And we are live on the Paranormal King radio network at paranormalking.com. And tonight we have an interesting show for you. We've got some validation here. Big announcement. Yes, the Yeti has been discovered. We'll talk about that massive story here in 1 second. We're also going to have a little bit more on the story that, I don't know, I feel like I kind of broke this story last week because it just came out around 6 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday, and then we talked about it here on the Paranormal News Insider at 8 o'clock. So that big story, and I knew it was going to be big, and it's been all over the place. The U.S. Navy UFO reporting guidelines story. There's a little bit more to that. And we're going to talk about the Department of Defense. Yeah, I just put myself on a list. And by saying that out loud, and I'm sure somebody's going to be knocking on my door pretty soon. But yeah, the DOD might be behind something here. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. That's what we call a teaser. And yes, you're going to want to listen to this. And we're also going to talk about MUFON, as MUFON looks at 50. See how many gray hairs they're counting at this point. And last but not least, a brand new, wait for it, a brand new ghost hunting show. Whoa, I know we just talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Can you believe it? Another one. What are the odds? Anyway. Kind of a fun action-packed show tonight here on episode 392. I'm a little worked up. I'm getting excited, heading out to my first conference of the year this weekend. A little bit behind the 8 ball, I guess, because I took some predetermined time off this year because I knew I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. I was going to play some baseball out in Arizona in January and was going on a cruise in March. I knew all this stuff was going to happen. And after having my own convention last year in February, I decided to kind of take some time off here in the beginning of this year. But I've got a pretty fun month of May coming up. And it seems like this weekend is pretty packed as far as the paranormal conference scene is concerned. Looking at my list of events at paranewsinsider.com, I see there's a City of Ghosts conference, May 2nd through the 5th in Deadwood, South Dakota. The Virginia City Paracons taking place May 3rd through the 5th in Virginia City, Nevada. And ParaPsyCon is taking place in Mansfield, Ohio, about 45 minutes south of where I sit right now, May 4th through the 5th. And let's see, there's one more. One more. How could I forget? Of course, I can't forget this one. The Haunted Heights Paranormal Convention, May 3rd through the 4th in Houghton Lake Heights, Michigan. And how could I forget that? I'll be speaking there on Saturday. And if you're going to be there, I'll be there. I'm going to try to get there Friday night. I got to work Friday, but I'm going to try to get there Friday night. Maybe I'll see you there Friday night. If not, I'll see you on Saturday. And I speak right after lunch. I'm the token lunch guy. That usually doesn't work out well. People eat lunch, they get back late, and they're a little tired. So I had to bring my A game for that, but still excited about it. It's a lot of people I've never met before, and I enjoy those because I like to listen to what other people have to say, especially in this area of Michigan, which I've never investigated this area, nor have I been involved in a paranormal conference or convention in this area. So it's going to be interesting to see some of their thoughts on ghosts and cryptids and things. And as well as some of the local things that happen there. It's always neat and interesting to see how the culture is a little bit different when you go to different areas. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to put on my presentation. I will be talking about UFOs. This is primarily a ghost conference. There is one speaker on cryptids, which is why I jumped on the UFO grenade, which is also my latest book is on that subject, and I'll mention that, tie that into a story. It's a nice segue later on in the show. So yeah, the Haunted Heights Paranormal Convention this weekend, way up there in Michigan. Hope it don't snow or anything like that. It's going to be crazy. But looking forward to that event and meeting some new people in the paranormal field and having a good time. You know, I go to these things to speak and talk about my stuff and maybe sell a few books. But really, I like to go and I like to learn from other people and maybe give out some of my information or knowledge and experience as well to some of these other researchers. And it's all about just getting out there and meeting new people and networking. Really is what it's about. So get out there, get out to these conferences and conventions. They are a lot of fun, and some of them maybe are not worth the money to get into. I get it. Some of these are pretty expensive. Some of them aren't, and some of them may be in your own backyard and you don't even know it. There is one event I want to remember. I'm going to mention this Ohio Bigfoot Conference, also this weekend. May 4th at the Salt Fork State Park Lodge and Conference Center in Lower City, Ohio. And I really wish I could speak at that one. I just never get around to getting a hold of anybody there. But anyway, if you want to see the complete list of conferences and conventions from ghosts to UFOs to cryptids, I have them separated by what they're basically majority of the speakers are on. Again, some of these may have multiple types of speakers involved, especially the one that I just mentioned, the Haunted Heights Paranormal Convention. There's mostly ghosts people, so, well, not ghost people, but ghost researchers will be speaking at that. So I put it under the ghost conferences conventions, but again, there will be at least one cryptid speaker and at least, well, there's just me for UFOs. So you're going to learn the whole gamut. You're going to learn a lot about various things, and I'm excited about this presentation. It's a variation of something that I did a couple of years ago, and haven't really done it since. And it's going to be geared, obviously, a little bit more towards the Michigan area. But since it is a lot of ghost people, I've kind of changed it a little bit to where it's going to kind of take from that as well. So it's going to be about UFO research and investigation, but with a kind of a launching point of the ghost aspect. So I know they understand the ghost research methods and thought process. So I'm going to use that as a launching point to talk about UFOs. So hopefully get everybody on board with that. And again, if you know any conference or convention, maybe I don't have it on my list, but check it out at paranewsinsider.com and click on the events tab at the top. And if you know of any conference or convention that's not on that list, feel free to let me know and I'll talk about it. Get it on the list. And I'm telling you, this list gets a lot of hits. I have a lot of people who run these conferences and conventions that always let me know. They always email me. They always tell me that they get a lot of traffic from this website. So just throwing that out there to you. And I'm not going to charge you for it. It's free. I do it because, partially because of the web traffic. Yeah. But also because a lot of people don't know these things are going on in their own hometown or in their state. And there's some lists out there, and a lot of people copy mine, which is fine. But just tell people where you got it from. Just don't take it lock, stock, and barrel. But there's not a whole lot of inclusive lists out there, and just doing my best to kind of give back to the field to hopefully get more people involved in ghosts, UFOs, or cryptid research in the future. That's what I want, because the more people we get, hopefully the more good people we get, and hopefully we get more answers, or at least more data, more input. I don't know, something about that. But looking forward to this conference this weekend in May is going to be a busy time for me. You probably remember, maybe I mentioned this once or 30 times, but I'm really looking forward to the PA Bigfoot Camping Adventure, May 31st through June 2nd of 2019 at the Benner's Meadow Run Campground in Farmington, Pennsylvania. And if you didn't get your tickets, the last I heard, I don't remember if this was last night, yesterday, or this morning. Everything is kind of a blur to me at this point. There was only about 5 tickets left. So if you really want to go, you really better get on Facebook and get a hold of the PA Bigfoot Camping Adventure. It's pretty much Eric Altman running this. And let him know, hey, I want to go. I need to get there. Because there will be no tickets sold at the door. And you'll be alone in the woods with Bigfoot at that point. You're not going to be able to see the plethora of speakers, 12 and a half speakers, as well as a very large celebrity guest list, which includes Bill Brock, Ken Gerhard, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Cliff Barrickman, Stacy Brown Jr. There's probably more that I just can't remember off the top of my head. But again, 12 and a half speakers. And there's a half because of Jay Bachochin and his son Blake. His son Blake is the half speaker. It wasn't me. Yes, I will be speaking at that event, and I'm really looking forward to that as well. So again, if you have any information about any conference or convention, let me know. Insider@paranewsinsider.com. You can email me at insider@paranewsinsider.com. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, as well as Instagram. And if you go to the gates and you cry, they're not going to let you in. I mean, maybe if you have $1,000 or something. I don't know. Anyway, we got a little bit of news tonight, and I teased this at the start. Some late-breaking news. Well, not that late. Not like last week, where we were breaking stories about an hour or two after they came on the news wire. But you might have seen this already. And I wasn't actually sure I was going to talk about this story until it popped up in my newsfeed again tonight. And I saw a bunch of people are covering this now. A lot of people are talking about this. So there's some interest in this particular news story that's still kind of unfolding a little bit. I've read some skeptical viewpoints on this already, which I'll talk about a little bit. And I've also seen some of the kind of, I guess you'd call it true believer camp is talking about this story as well. And it's about the Yeti, also known as the abominable snowman, which is not always easy to say. The abominable snowman. The Yeti, in case you haven't heard, it's true. It's said to have been discovered. Absolute, undeniable proof has finally arrived, so we can cross that one off the list. There it is. We've got one. It's in the bag. Yeah, there it is. And we don't have to worry anymore. It's been taken care of. The Yeti has been found. Okay, not really. Let's not get carried away here. And this information, of course, I mean, you have big information, big data, big information recorded about one of the biggest cryptids, figuratively and maybe literally. Where else are you going to put this information? A scientific journal? Who's got time for that? You want to get this out to the public as soon as possible. So what better way than to use social media? So this kind of tells you already where this story is headed. And of course, it wasn't sent out on Instagram, which would have been really, really cool and hip with the youth of today. Maybe they would have used Snapchat. I don't know. I don't use that. Maybe the younger kids are using the old Snapchat thing. I don't know. But it came out via a tweet. And this was sent out on April 29th. And it said, for the first time, an Indian Army mountaineering expedition team has sighted the mysterious footprints of the mythical beast Yeti, measuring 32 by 15 inches, close to Makalu Base Camp on 9 April 2019. This elusive snowman has only been sighted at McKellar Barren National Park in the past. So yeah, there it is. They've got footprints and everything, and you can't deny this. There it is. I mean, my goodness, it's a footprint. It's a big mark in the snow. So it's not a real, what you call a footprint. It's kind of a snow footprint. And yeah, I'm not sure how much stock I have in that, but as we've maybe you remember, we've talked about this in the past on the show, that some of these Yeti snow prints are actually bear footprints, and we've seen this happen quite a bit over the past, gosh, I don't know, well, at least the 10 years that I've been covering the paranormal news here on the Paranormal News Insider. It's a recurring theme. It's just, I'm not going to get too excited about this, and there's been speculation, and I'm going to throw this picture in the chat room. So if you're in the chat room, you're listening live in the chat room, you're going to get a sneak peek at this. Hopefully it might be too big here. It looks like, well, yeah, it's loading. There it is. It's huge. Look how big that is. So you see some footprints there in the background of this ginormous footprint. Undeniable proof. There it is. The footprint that's going to put this in, I don't know what you call it, but Guinness Book of World Records. I don't know. It's there it is. And India, they said it's real. They've got proof. And this story, again, just broke, well, I guess this morning, I thought this was out yesterday. Well, maybe somebody else had it yesterday. The one I'm looking at now, they did take a lot of pictures, and they put it on, again, Twitter, and posted Monday on the verified account of the India Army, the ADGPI, the Additional Directorate General of the Public Information for the Indian Army. There's 8,000 retweets and 17,000 reactions according to the story, but looking at this, there's almost 24,000 likes on this already, and says over 13,500 people are talking about this tweet. So this is making the round. This is getting out there. People are talking about this. It says 10,725 retweets already, and just a tick under 24,000 likes, and 11,000 retweets. So it's getting out there. People are talking about this, but no scientists, amazingly, are talking about this. And CNN, Reuters, BBC, everyone's talking about this. Media outlets are talking about this. But yeah, some of it's already kind of imploding on them, because some Indian officials are already saying they're actually embarrassed about this tweet here about this supposed find, that it's kind of embarrassing because they're pretty sure it's not true. And there's been even some thought that maybe the Indian Army's Twitter account was hacked and the stuff was put on there. But apparently it's true. They're sticking with it and saying, yeah, we actually did. Yep. And I don't know. We'll see how this turns out. It's still a kind of a fresh story. The snow isn't melted yet, and we'll see. And that's kind of my thought process here. So if snow does melt, you may or may not know. I know because I live in Ohio, and we have snow pretty much 9 months out of the year, it seems like. And when the temperature gets higher, a smaller track will get larger. This could be what we're seeing here. This could also be bear tracks, where the bear's rear paw touches the front paw, which makes a larger track, a different looking track. This has been known to fool a lot of people in the past, and with this. It's even suggested that the famous Eric Shipton photograph back in, oh gosh, my mind just exploded. 19, when was this? 51, I think it was, to Mount Everest, and that famous picture with the pickaxe next to it was is pretty much thought to be just a misinterpreted bear print, bear track. So, yep, there you have it. Big news out of India in the Himalayas up there. And yeah, well, fun place to hike, but watch for bears. Yep. So that's that. And, well, let me share that link. Got in a bad habit of that last week. So we're going to share a link in the chat room, maybe. Here it goes. Just so, again, another little added benefit of being in the chat room. You get some quick links to these stories so you can digest them at your leisure, as well as some additional photographs. So you can kind of get an extra dimension, if you will, on these particular individual stories. So you can kind of weigh it yourself and not have to waste your time. You know, if you're researching these stories, I just give you the links, and you know, I'm going to tell you the truth anyway. What I feel, how I interpret these things, and you know, I've had a few emails lately. How do I put this gently? Not really well constructed emails, but I get the point. I got the point that you don't like some of the things that I say about the paranormal. I'm a little too skeptical, whatnot. But you know, I just report the news, and I tell you what's the more than likely solution with these things. I take what the information gives me, and I turn around and I use my experience, my knowledge, to kind of give the story my thoughts with it. Or if there's other information that's already been available as to the potential solution, or if there is an actual solution to these stories, I'm not just going to say, hey, there's a track, they think it's a Yeti, it's in India, wow, what do you think of that? You get that anywhere. But I'm giving you the unvarnished truth. I'm giving you what I feel is what these stories are potentially about. And if it comes across as skeptical, so be it. We need a little bit more skepticism, I feel, in all the paranormal arenas, whether it's UFOs, which we're going to get into here in a second, or ghosts or cryptids, for that matter. I mean, it's easy to believe. And it's easy for me to sit here and tell you all these fun, fanciful stories and tell you how much I believe in them and how Yeti is real and it's marching around and chasing people in the Himalayas and all these things. I can tell you that. But I know that a majority of these sightings, if not all these sightings, are probably not what people think. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cater to these emotions. Yes, this is a paranormal news story, but in a paranormal news show. But I feel like I owe you the truth. You know, I feel like a laugh, if you will, but I feel kind of like a journalistic. I don't know. I feel like it's like an integrity thing here, and I'm telling you these stories, and I'm giving you really how I feel, and as balanced as I can be. And unfortunately, sometimes the scales tip a little bit too heavy on the skeptical side, but that's not my fault. You know, stop letting people publish some of these bad stories. And again, some of these India news outlets are a little embarrassed by this story breaking, and I kind of get it, you know. And I've read and heard some more skeptical viewpoints stating that this is probably just a way to generate a little bit more publicity for people to visit the area. So I don't know. It does make sense to me, but again, really doubtful this was actually a Yeti. They believe it, but that doesn't mean that we all have to believe it as well. And now I'll slowly climb off my soapbox for the next 2 minutes as I bring you UFO news. And I mentioned this story last week, and again, the story broke just prior to the show coming on the air, and I didn't get a whole lot of time to really digest what was happening or what was said. I just basically read the headline, just kind of read through it really, really quickly, and I did predict that this story would probably become pretty big. And it has. Major news outlets have been talking about this, what this means not only for the future, but what it could mean about the government and UFO sightings of the past. And of course, I'm talking about the story in which the U.S. Navy has created guidelines for the reporting of UFOs by its pilots. The story broke shortly after 6 p.m. last Tuesday night by Politico, and gained some heavy momentum by the next morning. Now, the Navy wants to make sure that the military pilots who see strange things in the sky are not afraid to report them. But they're not saying that they believe that what is being seen in the skies are alien-operated spacecraft and are invading our airspace. So one Navy official explained a bit in a statement to Politico. I said, quote, "A number of reports of unauthorized and or unidentified aircraft entering various military-controlled ranges and designated airspace in recent years. These kind of incursions can be both a security risk and pose a safety hazard for both Navy and Air Force aviation. For safety and security concerns, the Navy and U.S. Air Force takes these reports very seriously and investigates each and every report," unquote. Which is interesting. Do they really? Are they really investigating each and every report? Where's all that information going? They also state that some sightings have been classified military aviation programs that are currently taking place or have taken place in the past in the Western United States. We all know what's out there. Essentially, what all of this means is the Navy is creating a better means of getting this information to the correct authorities to be able to follow up, investigate, or possibly even bury, I guess, if they're talking about classified aircraft. They don't really want that stuff getting out. And of course, many people have suggested throughout the years that the government created this whole UFO thing to kind of throw us off the trail, I guess, of some of their military experiments going on out there in the Western U.S. But who knows? I mean, it's interesting. You know, why did they come out with this? So basically, instead of flushing in information about UFOs, unidentified flying objects, or what they're calling now, heaven's sakes, if you say unidentified flying objects, they're saying unexplained aerial phenomena. That's the new term, which is weird because the U.S. Air Force actually created the term unidentified flying objects. Back then, they called them UFOBs, but I guess UFOB doesn't sound as cool as UFO. Or if you saw that one video, I think it was from Colorado, that one kid yelling UFO over and over again. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that one. Anyway, they will collect the information just so that a sighting of potential enemy aircraft is not misinterpreted as a UFO. So there's a lot of reasons for this, for them to collect this information. But it's interesting that they would make this public, that they are definitely going to create a method of not only taking these reports, but disseminating it and handing it out to the proper area. That's just weird to me. You know, why make this public? If you're doing it, you're doing it. If you've always done it, you've always done it. But why tell us all? I don't get that. What's behind that? Is there a motivation behind this? I mean, is there really something to the whole UFOs from outer space aspect? Is this another step towards the D word? Yes, disclosure. Not many people are talking about that, but maybe this is a step towards disclosure. Or is this a sign that maybe, and just maybe, and this has always been my thought process here, maybe the government actually has no clue what's happening in the skies above. You have many levels of interest with all this stuff, and I just said before that maybe there's, they introduced UFOs, alien-powered aircraft, due to the massive amount of cultural belief systems with this. I mean, who in the world, and I'm sure there's at least one in the chat room here, who in the world has not gone out and seen this big movie that came out last week? The Marvel movie? You know what I'm talking about. Avengers? Endgame? Anyone see that? I'm not going to ruin it. I'm not going to tell you what happens. I could do that, but I won't do that. Very good movie. If you've not seen it, you got to get out there. I mean, you can't hide from, there's so many spoilers out there. It's hard to hide from them at this point. Yeah, and I knew it, Dita. I knew you didn't see it yet. But yes, it's one of the top, probably going to be one of the top grossing movies, fastest movie to get to like $1 billion and set all these records. But think about it. This movie is based on the prospect of aliens. We look at all these top movies throughout time. One of the top franchises, Star Wars. Well, it's based on aliens. Avatar, longstanding one of the top grossing movies of all time, based on aliens. And a good portion of the top 100 movies, I think it was the last time I counted was about 18 to 20%. I mean, 18% doesn't sound that high, the top 100 grossing movies of all time, but you think about all the subject matter that goes into movies, that's pretty big. Aliens. So of course, we have a big focus on, is there life out there? Not just that, but I think there's a big portion of that is fear. Fear of what would happen if we were to encounter alien species. You look at the movie Alien itself. You can look at Predator. You can look at Independence Day. A lot of these movies, even Avengers Endgame. What would happen if a big purple alien came down here and decided to level half the population? That's part of the fear. And the last I checked, we don't have an Incredible Hulk running around to save us. I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, maybe the government has no clue. Maybe they don't know. And, now people are all worked up about it. After 60 some odd years of UFOs, UFO research going on since the 1940s, the government having all these Blue Book and all these other organizations, these research projects going on, and they've all seemed to come to the same conclusion. There's nothing out there, nothing going to hurt us. There's no merit, and they bury. And a lot of people are getting a little frustrated with that, and they think the government knows a lot more than maybe what they do. And we're waiting for disclosure. But don't hold your breath, because I honestly don't think the government knows as much as they're saying. And I think this story is kind of an acknowledgement of that. Maybe they really don't know as much as what we give them credit for. I mean, there's so many different channels that all this information goes through. Not everybody knows what everybody else knows, and therefore, I know there's not really a whole lot of collective information. I mean, you don't have to go too far in the government to see that not everybody's on the same page. Anyway, in addition to that news, the Navy is now looking to gather information on incidents of purported UFOs. There's now the understanding that the Department of Defense was behind the release of 3 popular videos that came out back in 2017 that has still left the paranormal and UFO community stunned. I mean, we're stunned. Let's see, the ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, that organization nobody knew about this. And all of a sudden we found out, hey, guess what? The government's still researching UFOs. And surprise. And so people got a little bit of, I don't know, a little excited about this, I guess. And Luis, who he directed the ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, for nearly a decade, stated that he had attempted to get these videos released prior to leaving the Pentagon. And his goal was to get these 3 now famous videos, as well as many more, declassified. And apparently, the Department of Defense opted to release these 3 videos, which are named Go Fast, Gimbal, and Tic Tac, with the latter formerly named FLIR, I guess under the one that wasn't completely redacted, all the information that's there. Elizondo and others insist these are not the only events, including former Nevada Senator Harry Reid, who helped create the ATIP program. Now, the ATIP or AATIP program started in 2007 and lasted until 2012 and was a secret study until 2017. The videos are not exactly perfect examples of completely unidentifiable flying objects, as many have been able to offer perfectly plausible explanations of the 3 released videos, but Reid seemed to be adamant that these represent a larger pile of evidence that, alas, we are not alone. And supposedly, a number of people researched these and also came to the conclusion that there's no way to validate these as anything else but unidentified flying objects. Well, I don't support that. I've seen some of the work done by some people, and I've researched these myself, and I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that there's no explanation. So both Elizondo and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, Christopher Mellon, well, both these guys are involved in the Tom DeLonge-headed To These Stars Academy. And much of this press might be, just saying might be, I'm not saying it is, maybe a way to put them ahead of other research organizations, or maybe even to be in line to get some government funding through their independent research. But again, that's just my hypothesis. And, when I start seeing these names of people popping up constantly with this particular story, or these 2 stories, it makes me wonder, what is the motivation behind this? Is it S's with 2 vertical lines through it? I don't know. Maybe, just maybe. I don't know. But there's always an underlying thing to all these. But hopefully, this story will continue to pop up, and maybe we'll get more and more videos released, and maybe we get a little bit more information as to what the government was talking about. But you wonder if there's such a need for them to disseminate this information, why they keep closing all these research projects, and I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, moving along, speaking of other research organizations, the Mutual UFO Network, which currently is probably the largest worldwide organization that researches and investigates UFOs, will be celebrating its 50th anniversary in the month of May. MUFON began as the Midwest UFO Network back on May 31st, 1969 in Quincy, Illinois. A large portion of this group came from another organization known as the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, also known as APRO. APRO and other organization known as NICAP, or the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, were heralded by Professor J. Allen Hynek as being the best UFO research organizations of their time due to how they approached their subject matter. APRO began in January of 1952 and eventually folded in 1988. MUFON was actually formed due to to do much in the way of research into UFO sightings in the Midwest, as their centralized approach to handling cases through the Tucson, Arizona home office, they felt like it was hindering it. So a bunch of states got together and they decided, hey, let's form our own organization under the umbrella of APRO. And that's the humble beginning. Began in October of 1956. That was one of the premier organizations, 14,000 in the 1960s. 14,000 may not seem like a lot, but you consider that right now MUFON, for comparison, MUFON states that they currently have a membership base of around 4,000. So 14,000 would be quite a bit. However, by the late 1960s, membership to NICAP began some financial issues, infighting, and a lot of other things that were happening within the organization. And by 1980, NICAP ceased operations. Were ultimately Allen Hynek formed Center for UFO Studies, also known as SUFOS. NICAP and APRO were both involved in the University of Colorado UFO project from 1966 to 1968. Well, that may not sound familiar to you, but that project was more popularly known as the Condon Committee, which was funded by the U.S. Air Force. The committee offered their final analysis of the UFO issue in late 1968 and released their findings in early 1969 with the scientific study of unidentified flying objects, also known as the Condon Report. Quite the read. The report essentially stated that UFO research had not created anything of merit to science and was therefore not necessary to continue to investigate. This led to Project Blue Book being shut down at the end of 1969 and also impacted the number of members, with many UFO groups that littered the nation and the world at the time. MUFON was originally part of APRO, as I mentioned, although it was an independent organization that was still affiliated with them for some time. MUFON eventually became, instead of the Midwest UFO Network, became the Mutual UFO Network, abandoning the limited Midwest aspect of as the organization grew from the original states, which were Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri. That's all from memory. That's incredible. MUFON has received a lot of different sides for its access from airspace to its method of training and maintaining its state-based investigator system, to its involvement with off-topics of UFOs, including abductions, conspiracy theories, and even cryptids, as well as incidents of 2018 of far-right views, which led to a mass exodus of state directors, as well as investigators, and a lot of other people involved with the organizations. MUFON will hold its annual conference this July in Irvine, California, with the theme of embracing the future. And you can find more information about that at mufonsymposium.com. And if you're out there in the California area, this is pretty much the premier event for UFOs. They do this every year. They've been holding a symposium for a number of years. And yeah, it's the one to go to if you can afford it. But yeah, MUFON, they've had their issues, and you just think that maybe they got too big for themselves. And some of these problems, as far as the investigators, they went against what APRO was doing. APRO basically said, hey, we're going to control all the cases coming in, and we're going to give them to people and assign them from the home office. And MUFON said, no, let's do it the other way around. Let's have reports go in, and the states individually investigate these from a different aspect. And maybe that worked for a while, but the more people you get involved, ultimately you're going to have a lot of diversity as far as how people investigate, their methodology. And yes, MUFON has a very, very, very good field research manual that I highly recommend, although it's extremely expensive. It's well over $100. And you can join MUFON. You can sign up and become a member, and you can get newsletters. You can actually get their newsletter for nothing. You just sign up, you use your email. You can become a MUFON member. You can put down, I don't remember how much a month it is. It's not that much to get. You get a fancy schmancy little card, and you get discounts on merchandise and all this other stuff. And if you want to become an investigator, there's a little bit of a process to go through with that through the state directors. So it's all basically state driven, and some stuff is pushed down through the home office, but essentially it's kind of a state driven thing. And MUFON is just MUFON. You can't really, it's not franchisable. You can't just start your own franchise. And you just join pretty much versus your state, or you can join as a member through their website at MUFON.com and get involved that way. But I'm going to be honest, though. I had a few issues with that. Decided, hey, I want to get involved in UFO research, UFO investigation. I became a member and researched that. I got their field investigators manual, studied it, took the test, did really well on the test, and sent this information into the state director, which I believe at the time was in Denver, Colorado. And I didn't get an answer back for a while, if ever. And I kept emailing, and finally got somebody had said, email your state. So I emailed the state, and it took a while. They said, okay, fine, we'll get you in here as an investigator. They paired me up with somebody to become a field investigator. I was a trainee for a while, and a very bad communication between this person and myself. And I tried, really just didn't feel like there was much effort being put into training anybody else. And I was a little worried about that, because if I'm getting this experience, what's happening elsewhere, and tried to reach out to the state director at the time and got nothing. This was about 18, 19 years ago, and I got really no response. And so I decided that MUFON was not for me. And it took a while for them to gain my trust back. And I've had the pleasure of talking to many state directors over the last few years, and I'm still not 100% confident of the way they have everything organized. I wish I had the time to get more involved with it and kind of throw my hat in the ring to do things a little bit differently. But, maybe 50 years, that's a long time for an organization like this. And the weird thing is all of these UFO organizations ultimately come to an end. And the big question mark that a lot of people have been talking about, especially since last year's big debacle, is how long? How long can MUFON last? And I don't know. It's if some of the political things continue, once you start losing membership, it's really, really hard to get people back. And it's kind of weird, because you'll look at the UFO field, and it's aging. It's getting older. Most of these guys were, involved in the 60s, 70s, and even the 80s. But you don't see a whole lot of new young blood getting involved in UFOs too much anymore. It's pretty rare, not compared to ghosts, which is like probably the youngest field. It never stops. And cryptids, people are kind of jumping from the ghost field into the cryptid field all the time. So I don't know. UFOs seem like they fade away. But then all of a sudden you get a story like what we're talking about with the U.S. Navy, and it kind of revives itself. And again, I'm amazed because how many cultural references we have. Again, not just the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but all these other movies and books and sci-fi, fantasy type things to television shows like The Orville, which I highly recommend, a very entertaining show. I don't know, just so many questions about this. Finding exoplanets at a record pace. We have new technology getting in line for that as well. So it's just amazing. Discoveries are happening, and how we're kind of trying to deal with that through cultural things such as movies and books and television. So UFO research is kind of dwindling. But again, you can join MUFON, or you can become an independent researcher and investigator. And what better way than to read another book? Reading is good. Reading is fundamental, as they say. Actually, speaking of this, I actually wrote a book for this. It's my latest book called Handbook for the Amateur UFO Investigator. And you can find links to that at paranewsinsider.com. If you click on the About tab at the top, you can read about me, and you can find links to my books. And this will definitely save you at least $90, if not $100, from the MUFON Field Investigator's Manual. And this is going to give you a balanced view of UFO research and investigation. Just figured I'd throw that in there as an additional resource. And with that, we're going to move on to ghost news for our final story of the night. And in case you missed it, I missed it. I heard about it, but I don't know, just kind of I didn't see it, so I didn't talk about it. I wasn't planning on watching it, I should say. I had other plans. Last Friday night was the debut of another new ghost hunting show. Can you believe it? Wow, I thought every imaginable show based on ghost hunting was already made. There was no way we could get anything new out of this, but yes, Jack Osborne. You might have heard of the name Osborne, maybe? Jack Osborne, son of legendary rocker Ozzy Osbourne, as well as Katrina Weidman, who is known for her work with Paranormal Research Society's television show, which was called Paranormal State. Well, they're starring together in a new TV show called Portals to Hell. Well, I guess you got to get really edgy with these names. I mean, Ghost Hunters, that one started it all. It's kind of a generic term nowadays. And it's funny because Ghost Hunters back around in that time frame, probably before that time frame actually, was kind of a slang term. It really wasn't something you wanted to be called. You're just a ghost hunter. It wasn't cool. Anyway, Jack Osborne, he also appeared on the sci-fi television show Haunted Highway. You might remember that one back in 2012 and 2013. Well, I'm sad to say I missed the debut episode, but I did have time to watch a preview of that episode, and it took place in Juneau, Alaska, which I've been to a couple of times, at the Alaskan Hotel, which I believe I've seen once. I didn't go into it. It seems like it falls in line with the majority of the shows, unfortunately, where it's all about a good story. Also, preconceived notions about potential activity in certain areas. And then, of course, using battery-operated gadgets to support the stories or emotions behind the purported paranormal activity. But see it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I wasn't impressed with it. Let's just put it to you that way. Jack is he's really good at getting your emotions invested in this, and he's a good presenter of this information. But as far as the activities are concerned, to me, it just seems like everything else. But there's an additional caveat to this. The show, it's kind of gotten a little lashing out by some fans of previous shows for a variety of reasons, but Jack Osborne swears this show is different, which is weird because I think I've heard this one before. Jack Osborne said in an interview, he says, quote, "I watch these shows as a believer and also as a heavy critic of how reality shows are made. When you know how the soup's made, it sometimes doesn't taste as good. The last paranormal show I did, it was a lot of fun making, but I found it painful to watch at times. It was like, that's not how it happened. That's completely altered in certain ways. I can earnestly say from the bottom of my heart, everything viewers will see in this show happened the way it happened. There's been nothing altered, doctored, heightened. We might lift sound in some areas so you can hear it better. It's in both our contracts, too, that we do not fake things, and it feels honest." Unquote. But again, take that for what you will. This is not the first time I've heard people talking about that or saying those kinds of things. But you have to remember, this is television, and there's a certain pecking order to how these TV shows are edited and are put together and are broadcasted to the audience. Jack is an executive producer of the show, but he is just one of many. And these shows will do whatever to gain and ultimately hold viewership. In reality, it's all about selling time slots for commercials. So when you break it down, these TV shows are so they don't. It's really the producers don't truthful something is about entertainment. And the travel, which has recently rebranded itself as the Vowelless Travel, TRVL, fancy new little logo. It seems the only traveling that happens are some vacation type shows and now some of the other Discovery Network owned channels and the Travel Channel. Some of the other Discovery Network owned channels have been broadcasting these ghost TV shows for a number of years, but the Travel Channel is one of their top networks. So this is kind of new kind of thing here. They do show some old shows of other networks, and they've been getting in this ghost thing for a little while now. And former Travel Channel executive Jane Latman said, quote, "We're trying to redefine what travel is for today's audience," unquote. She said that back in February. And Latman was recently reassigned to the HGTV network, the Home and Garden Television Network. And Matthew Butler, who helped launch Destination America and American Heroes Channel, has stepped in and taken over. Now, Latman helped develop shows like Man vs. Food, one of my favorites. Love that one. Ghost Adventures, Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern, and Mysteries at the Museum, which is another one of my favorites. So he is he's not unfamiliar with these ghost shows. Obviously, Ghost Adventures is one of the top shows there for a while in the ghost television show genre. So yeah, it looks like they're headed in that direction because they feel that people travel to go see these things. But how large of the public segment is involved with ghost investigation, ghost hunting, and just the pure curiosity aspect, I'm not sure. And I don't know how long they're going to be able to float that, but stuff's been going on for about 15 years now, since 2004. So ghost TV shows were on long before Ghost Hunters in 2004. Don't let them fool you. They weren't the first. And certainly they've continued on with many, many more. It seems like every week or so, we're talking about another new show that comes. The Portals to Hell will feature the Twin City Opera House in McConnellsville, Ohio, not too far from where I'm at. And they will visit Bobby Mackey's Music World on May 10th. I've been there before as well. Eastern State Penitentiary on May 17th. And we'll close out the so far 5 episodes Hill House, Pennsylvania. see if they go more than 5 episodes. It seems kind of short, but maybe they're just testing those. See what we'll do. And the flashlight down the hallway, I guess. That's a weird way to put it, but I think you ghost investigators will know what I'm talking about. Yeah, well, that's it. Wow, an hour's gone by. And with that, again, I want to thank everybody in the chat room. Weird stuff happening there. Everyone's repeating what they're saying. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Happened to me too. But thank you to everybody in the chat room. I appreciate you listening, and appreciate you following along with stuff and getting along civilly with each other in there. Also, I also appreciate you. It's not that I don't appreciate you. I'd rather have you here in the chat room live with me. It's more comfortable that way. Comfy. It's all a big family in here, I guess. But anyway, I get it. You can't listen live. Maybe you can listen on various podcasts. But hopefully we're out there, whether it's through the network here at the Paranormal King Radio Network show itself, to try to get it out there. Hopefully you can find it, favorite podcast network. And I will see you next week. But for now, keep your eyes in the skies, your ears in the woods, the hair standing on the back of your neck, and always keep your mind slightly ajar. Don't let you all out. Ajar. For the Paranormal News Insider, this is Dr. Brian D. Parsons reporting.